Whether you're a Florida fan or a Tennessee fan, we all know how big of a deal this matchup is. Florida versus Tennessee this weekend at the Swamp, and I couldn't be more pumped up about it. This is a rivalry that goes back many years, and although the Gators have dominated in the last 20 years, almost all of those matchups have gone down to the wire, and it is always a very, very close series game. But regardless of the other team's record, both of these teams take it serious. I can assure you that Tennessee fans always have this game circled, and so do Gator fans, because it's just that big of a deal. So without further ado, I am the college football enthusiast on SG1 Sports Florida, and I will be doing a preview on this highly anticipated matchup. So let's dive into Tennessee's last matchup. Tennessee's last matchup was against Austin Peay, and they didn't look the sharpest. Lots of Tennessee fans were frustrated. Their quarterback had accuracy issues, and the third down percentage against Austin Peay wasn't very good. They had lots of penalties, 10 penalties to be exact, and their time of possession was half of that of Austin Peay's, but that time of possession for Tennessee isn't a problem, because Tennessee, they run a fast-paced offense and they are able to score very quickly. So that's the least of the problems. But those other problems are very. I was very confused. I'm not a Tennessee fan, but I was very confused watching that game why Tennessee was struggling. And going into halftime, that game was 13-6. Of course, they ended up winning 30-13, but it was very confusing why they struggled. So Tennessee fans are hoping that they turn it around this weekend versus the Gators, and I can almost assure it that they probably will. Doesn't matter how the previous games went, we always bring our A games against each other. So going to the Gators' previous matchup, I did do a video on this, but I'm going to touch on it again. The Gators played at McNeese, and that game wasn't close at any point. The Gators took care of business, had lots of rushing yards, as you can see, and that was the main emphasis. They really wanted to hammer down the run game, because against Utah, it was horrific. We weren't able to run the ball for anything, so the Gators really wanted to make that an emphasis, and they did make a statement there. So us Gator fans and the Gator team is hoping that they have continued success with the run game. So without further ado, let's dive into just the matchup in general. Tennessee is favored by 6.5. That's the number that almost everyone is putting on this game. And it's so close because it's in the Swamp, and Tennessee hasn't won in the Swamp in 20 years, that's just a really long time. So everyone knows that this game will most likely be very close. And also, ESPN Analytics have Tennessee with a 54.1% chance and Florida with a 45.9% chance. So everything's favoring Tennessee. That's no surprise. Tennessee is ranked and the Gators are not. So very interested to see how this goes down. But when we do the side-by-side comparison to the teams so far this year, Tennessee does lead with total yards and total rush yards. However, the Gators do lead with more passing yards. And then on defense, yards allowed, the Gators have allowed fewer yards on both passing yards and rush yards. But I'm a little skeptical on this because it's a very small sample size. Like, for example, the Gators averaged 170 yards rushing versus Utah we had 13, and versus McNeese we had 327. So it's an average. Once more games go down, we'll know better numbers there. But those are the side-by-side comparisons. And with that being said, let's go into the key matchup of this game. So first key matchup is pretty obvious. It's Florida's offensive line versus Tennessee's defensive line. This is a big deal because if the Gators don't get their run game established, they aren't going to win this game. It's as simple as that. We saw it against Utah. If they're not able to run at all, just forget it. We're not going to win, like, let's be honest. So that is a big deal. And also, Tennessee, if my memory serves me correctly, they have 11 sacks, and they are actually leading the nation right now in sacks. So they've been able to apply pressure. Although it was against inferior opponents, still, that's leading the nation in sacks is leading the nation in sacks. So that is a very interesting matchup that I'm curious to see which way it leans towards, Florida's offensive line or Tennessee's defensive line. This next matchup is, it's a mouthful, but it's Tennessee's quarterback, running back, and offensive line versus Florida's defensive line and pass rush. So the reason I'm making this one more complicated than the last one is because the last key matchup, the previous key matchup, I mean, is pretty straightforward. If the D-line of Tennessee dominates the O-line, the Gators aren't winning. But for the other way around, it's very interesting because their quarterback is someone who has received a lot of preseason praise. So if the Gator defensive line is able to cut through the offensive line and stop the running game and the running backs, then that will leave the quarterback having to carry the load, especially if it's like 3rd and long, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7. And that's when Florida's pass rush, not just the defensive line, comes into play. And I'm just very curious to see what happens if Tennessee's put in that position where their quarterback Joe Milton has to win them the game. So very interested on that. And a key detail, going back to the other key matchup very quickly, is that Florida finally has their starting offensive lineman, which is the center, Kingsley Egukin. And that is a big deal because before he missed these past 2 games, he had started like 26 straight games. So that's going to benefit the Gators, I believe. So these are some matchups that very intrigued about. And overall, this game I'm very curious about. I'm not going to make my predictions yet. I may leave that to another video. But I'm not sure. I'm on the fence. I feel the Gators have a chance to win, even though they are the slight underdogs. It feels like heavy underdogs, but slight underdogs. I feel like we still have a good chance to win. In Tennessee as well, they have a very good chance to win. They have a well-rounded team, a much improved defense. So this is going to be an interesting matchup. I think it is going to be the best matchup of this week. So really looking forward to it. And yeah, we will see what happens. But thank you guys for tuning into this video. And make sure you catch this game. I think this game is going to be one that you don't want to miss. And I will be doing a post-game reaction video. And go Gators!